She introduced me as the sponsor at her birthday dinner, then slid me the bill for a table I didn't order. I didn't argue, just paid for my meal and left. 48 hours later, the restaurant manager called about a card dispute with her name on it. I have always believed that you can tell a lot about a person by how they treat those they think they do not need. For the last 2 years, I have been dating a woman who treated me like the most important person in her world when she wanted something, and like a piece of background furniture when she did not. The problem was, I was too busy being the provider to notice I was also considered the help. My name is David. I am 52 years old, and I own a commercial waste management company. It is not a glamorous job. My days are filled with logistics, dumpsters, and industrial contracts, but it is a very successful business that I built from the ground up with 2 decades of hard work. It has afforded me a lifestyle I never imagined when I was a young man driving a single beat-up truck. 2 years ago, I met Megan. She is 29, beautiful, and has a vibrant energy that I found captivating. She worked part-time in marketing, but her real passion was being a social media influencer, a career that seemed to mostly involve taking pictures of herself in expensive outfits at trendy locations. I was happy to support her. I paid the rent on our beautiful downtown apartment. I covered the payments on her luxury SUV. I funded the vacations that provided the backdrop for her online life. I thought I was being a good partner. I see now I was just being a good employer. The disconnect between our worlds became a quiet source of tension. My friends are guys I have known for 20 years, plumbers, electricians, and other business owners. We drink regular beer and talk about football. Her friends were a rotating cast of other aspiring influencers and hangers-on who spoke in a language of brand deals and online engagement. When our worlds mixed, she would get a tight, strained look on her face. The breaking point came last Saturday. On her 29th birthday, she decided she wanted to celebrate at the Oak Room, one of the most exclusive and expensive restaurants in the city. She did not just want a table for 2. She wanted to host a party for 12 of her closest friends. She told me she wanted it to be a night she would never forget. She had no idea how right she was. She left all the arrangements to me. I called the restaurant, a place I actually frequent for business dinners. I know the manager, Carlos, and he always takes good care of me. I booked a private section, confirmed the reservation, and left my credit card on file, as is their policy for large parties. The unspoken understanding, as always, was that I would be taking care of the entire bill. The night of the dinner, I wore a tailored suit and my best watch. I wanted to make her proud. When I arrived, she was already there, holding court with her friends, a glass of champagne in her hand. She looked stunning, and for a moment I forgot all the little red flags. She kissed my cheek and thanked me for arranging everything. The dinner was a performance. Her friends talked about their recent trips, their new designer bags, and their social media strategies. I was an alien at the table, a silent observer from another planet. About an hour in, a woman who had just joined their circle, someone named Madison, asked the inevitable question. "So Megan, I have never heard the story of how you two met," she said, gesturing toward me. The whole table went quiet, looking at us. Megan gave a little laugh, a high-pitched, practiced sound. She waved her hand dismissively in my direction. "Oh, Madison, this is David," she said, her voice dripping with condescension disguised as a joke. "He is my sponsor. He makes all of this possible." The table erupted in laughter, not kind laughter, but the sharp, cruel laughter of an inside joke that I was not a part of. My sponsor. Not my partner, not my boyfriend, not the man I love. My sponsor. A word that reduced our entire relationship to a simple, crude transaction. I was the bank, the ATM, the guy who makes all of this possible. I felt my face flush, a hot wave of pure humiliation. I looked at Megan, waiting for her to correct herself, to say she was only kidding. She did not. She just smiled, basking in the laughter of her friends, and took a sip of her champagne. She would not even meet my eyes. And just like that, something in my mind clicked into place. The hurt, the confusion, it all just vanished, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. This was not a partnership. It was a business arrangement, and the terms were no longer acceptable. I stayed silent through the rest of the meal, through 2 more courses and 3 more rounds of drinks that I knew were costing a fortune. I watched them all, this pack of laughing hyenas, completely oblivious. At the end of the meal, the server brought the bill and, without a moment's hesitation, placed it on the table. Megan did not even look at it. She just picked it up with 2 fingers, slid it across the polished wood table to me, and said, "Here you go, babe." This was it, the final act of the show. I took the bill. The total was just over $2,000. I looked at it, then I looked at her. I gave a small nod. Then I excused myself from the table, saying I needed to find the restroom. I did not go to the restroom. I walked directly to the front of the house and found Carlos, the manager. He greeted me with a warm smile. "David, is everything to your liking tonight?" "Everything is wonderful, Carlos, thank you," I said. "Listen, I have a slightly unusual situation. I need to leave, but I want to settle my portion of the bill now." Carlos looked confused. "Your portion?" "Yes," I said, pulling out my personal credit card, not the one on file for the party. "I will just be paying for my own meal and my drinks. The rest of the bill is for the birthday party. That is on Miss Daniels." I will never forget the look on his face. He was a professional, but for a split second he understood everything. He saw the whole story. He simply nodded, went to his terminal, and printed out a separate bill for my steak and 2 glasses of whiskey. It came to $180. I handed him my card. When he brought the slip back, I wrote in a $200 tip. "For you and your staff, Carlos," I said quietly. "I am sorry for any awkwardness this causes." He shook my head. "Do not worry about it, David. We will handle it." I walked out the front door, got in my car, and drove home. My phone did not start buzzing for another 15 minutes. First, a text from Megan. "Where are you? Are you coming back?" Then, 10 minutes later, "Mark, the waiter came back with the bill. What did you do?" And finally, the frantic phone calls began. I ignored them all. I got home, poured myself a drink, and sat in the quiet of my apartment. The silence was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. I was done being a sponsor. Update 1. The 2 days after Megan's birthday dinner were a masterclass in what happens when an entitled person smacks into a hard wall of reality. The frantic calls and texts continued late into that Saturday night. I did not answer a single one. The voicemails she left were a journey. They started with confusion, then moved to righteous anger, where she accused me of humiliating her, and finally landed on panicked pleading when she realized I was not going to come back and rescue her. I found out later from Carlos, the restaurant manager, what had happened after I left. Apparently, the server returned to the table and presented the remaining $1,800 bill to Megan. She had laughed at first, thinking it was a joke. When she realized it was not, she caused a scene. She told the server there had been a mistake, that I was paying for everything. The server calmly explained that I had already settled my personal check and left. Her friends, the ones who had laughed so hard at her sponsor joke, suddenly went quiet. None of them offered to chip in. They all just stared at her, expecting her to handle it. In the end, she had to put the entire amount on her own credit card, a card I now know was already nearly maxed out. Her public performance as the carefree birthday girl had ended with her being personally on the hook for a massive bill she never intended to pay. She did not come home that night. I figured she stayed with one of her friends. I used the time wisely. The next morning, a Sunday, I did a full audit of our life together. I went through bank statements, credit card bills, and shared accounts. What I found was worse than I thought. She had a supplementary card on my primary business account, which was meant strictly for household emergencies. The bill was filled with thousands of dollars in charges for designer clothes, high-end cosmetics, and ride shares to and from expensive salons. It was a clear and sustained abuse of my trust. I also found her influencer business plan, something she had been working on for months. It was full of projections and goals. One section detailed her strategy for securing long-term brand partnerships and private funding. It did not take a genius to figure out who the primary source of that private funding was supposed to be. I was not her partner. I was a line item in her business plan. That afternoon, I methodically packed her belongings. Everything. The designer handbag she cherished, the racks of clothes she barely wore, the equipment she used for her social media posts. I did not throw anything away. I packed it all carefully into professional moving boxes, labeled them, and stacked them neatly in the spare bedroom. Then I called the phone company and had her line removed from my family plan. I called the insurance company and took her off my auto policy. I was surgically removing a tumor from my life. She finally showed up at the apartment on Monday afternoon. She had her own key, but I was waiting. I had already put the chain on the door. I opened it just enough to see her face. She looked tired and angry. "We need to talk," she said, trying to push the door open. The chain held firm. "I agree," I said calmly. "Let's talk right now. Is this a conversation between a boyfriend and girlfriend or between a woman and her sponsor? I just want to be clear on the terms of our discussion." The color drained from her face. "That was a joke, Mark, a stupid joke. You are being so dramatic about this." "Was it a joke when you spent $5,000 on my business credit card for your personal shopping?" I asked. "Was it a joke when you planned to use me as your private funder for your influencer career? Was it a joke when you slid an $1,800 bill for your friend's party across the table at me?" She stood there, speechless. She had no idea I had looked into everything. "I have packed your things," I said, my voice flat and devoid of emotion. "They are in the spare room. I suggest you arrange to have them picked up. As of this moment, our sponsorship agreement is terminated. You need to find a new place to live." I closed the door on her sputtering protests and locked the deadbolt. The calls started again, but this time I answered. I told her she had 48 hours to have her things professionally moved out, or I would put them in a storage unit at her expense. This leads me to the main event. 48 hours after the dinner. Tuesday morning, my phone rang. It was Carlos from the Oak Room. "David, I'm so sorry to bother you at work," he said, his voice sounding stressed. "We have a problem. We received a notification from the credit card company. Megan Daniels has disputed the charge for her birthday dinner." I felt a slow smile spread across my face. Of course she did. "What was the reason for the dispute?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "She's claiming the charge was fraudulent," Carlos said, exasperated. "That she did not authorize it. It is a $2,000 chargeback, David. We have to fight it, provide proof she was there. It is a huge headache." This was the moment she had handed me all the power. Her sense of entitlement had made her sloppy and stupid. "Carlos," I said, my voice calm and reassuring. "Do not worry about it for a second. I am going to handle this. You know, I am a good customer, and I will not see your restaurant lose money over this. I will personally cover the full $2,000. Just do me one small favor." "Anything, David. You know that." "Send me a copy of the official chargeback dispute she filed with her bank. The one with her signature on it, claiming fraud. Send it to my personal email." He agreed immediately, sounding immensely relieved. 5 minutes later, a PDF landed in my inbox. It was an official bank document detailing the disputed charge, and at the bottom was Megan's digital signature, attesting under penalty of law that the charge was fraudulent. She had just committed credit card fraud, and she had no idea that I had the proof right here on my computer screen. She thought she was fighting the restaurant. She had no idea she was about to be fighting for her entire future. Final update. It has been 4 months since Megan's birthday dinner. The life she so carefully curated has been completely and systematically dismantled, not by my anger, but by the cold, hard weight of her own actions. The day after I received the fraud documentation from Carlos, I had my lawyer draft a formal letter. It was delivered to her by a courier while she was staying at a friend's apartment, having been forced to leave mine. The letter was simple. It contained a copy of the chargeback form she had signed, a copy of the restaurant bill, and a statement from Carlos testifying that she and her party had been there and consumed the food and drinks. The letter laid out her 2 options. Option A, she could sign the attached promissory note, a legally binding document, acknowledging her debt to me for the $2,000 I had paid to the restaurant on her behalf, as well as the $5,000 she had charged to my business card. The note had a strict repayment schedule. Option B, if she refused to sign, I would turn over the fraud documentation to the restaurant, support them in filing a police report for fraud, and also pursue my own legal action against her for the credit card debt. She was trapped. Her attempt to get out of an $1,800 bill had now put her in a position where she was facing potential criminal charges and a much larger, legally documented debt. She called me, for the first time in days, sounding like a completely different person. There was no anger, no entitlement, just fear. "You cannot do this, David," she whispered. "I am not doing anything," I told her. "I am just showing you the consequences of your own choices. You committed fraud. I have the proof. Sign the papers, Megan, and this can all remain a civil matter. Do not, and you can explain your side of the story to a judge." She signed the papers the next day. Her friend, who was a notary, had to witness her signature on a document that legally bound her to repay every dollar she had taken from me and tried to steal from the restaurant. From there, her world fell apart with impressive speed. The friend she was staying with asked her to leave, not wanting to be involved in her drama. She ended up having to move back home with her parents, 2 hours outside the city. The influencer lifestyle she was trying to build vanished overnight. Without my apartment as a backdrop, without my money funding her wardrobe and travels, her social media feed became a ghost town. Her friends from the dinner party stopped calling her once it was clear she was no longer a source of free, high-end meals. She had to get a real 9-to-5 job, an entry-level position at an insurance company, to start paying off the debt she owed me and her parents, who were apparently furious about the whole situation. Every month, like clockwork, I receive a payment from her. It is not much, but it is a consistent reminder that actions have consequences. As for me, life has become peaceful. My business is doing better than ever. I have invested the money I am no longer spending on a sponsorship back into my company, and we have landed 2 major municipal contracts. I sold the expensive SUV she used to drive and used the money to give my entire crew a well-deserved bonus. I did start dating again a couple of months ago. Her name is Sarah. She is a landscape architect who owns her own small business. She is smart, funny, and she has dirt under her fingernails sometimes, just like me. We met because I hired her company to do the landscaping at my new office building. The other night, I took her to the Oak Room for dinner. Carlos, the manager, treated us like royalty. He brought over a bottle of his best champagne on the house. "To new beginnings, David," he said, raising his glass. Sarah looked at me, confused. "You seem to be very popular here." I just smiled. I am just a good customer who believes in paying his bills. We had a wonderful dinner. The conversation was easy and real. We talked about our work, our families, our dreams. Not once did I feel like I needed to be someone I was not. The bill came, and we split it down the middle, without either of us even thinking twice about it. As we were leaving, I saw a young woman at the bar who looked vaguely familiar. She was arguing with the bartender over the price of a drink. Her clothes were a little too flashy, her makeup a little too heavy. She looked tired and angry at the world. It took me a second to realize it was Madison, one of the friends from Megan's birthday dinner. Our eyes met for a brief second. I saw a flicker of recognition and then a wave of shame washed over her face before she quickly looked away. I did not feel triumphant. I did not feel anything at all. She was just a ghost from a different life. A life I had fully and completely closed the door on. I took Sarah's hand, walked out into the cool night air, and did not look back. I was no longer a sponsor. I was just a man who had finally learned the value of sponsoring himself.